Hello, welcome to Mean Life Studies. In this video, you will learn one of the important concepts in SQL, that is functions. A function is an expression that's going to take a single or multiple values as input and it will be returning a expressed value as output. So these functions will be used to perform different operations like calculations, data manipulations. So there are two main functions are there. Those are system defined or built-in functions. Next one, user defined functions. So in case of system defined function, we have different types of sub functions. Those are math functions for to do calculations like on numerical data. Next one, string functions. So this string function will help us to perform data manipulations on string type of data. Next one, date time functions, date and time functions. I mean, this date time function will help us to convert different formats or even extract different responses from a given date. Next, final one, aggregate functions. These are the aggregate functions we are going to use more frequently while we are doing data analysis, like sum of, min of, max of, count of, average. So these are the system defined functions that we are going to use more frequently while we are doing data manipulations or even data analysis. Now, we already discussed all of them in our previous video. Now, in this video, we are going to more focused on user defined functions. So these also divided into two types, that is scalar valued functions. Next one, table valued function. So these are going to return, in case of scalar valued function, it's going to take a multiple values as input and it will be returning a scalar value as output. So in case of table value function, it's going to take, it will be taking a multiple values as input, but that's going to return a table as a result. So here also you will be having two types of function, that is inline functions and next one multi-line. Multi-statement function. We can also call them as multi-statement functions in case of table valued function. Now, if you go and check databases in the left side, if I click on databases, go to any database, if you can able to see that, so there is a programmability option is there. These user-defined functions are just like a program in, if even if you consider any programs in other languages, you can see if I click on programmability, you can able to see that functions option is there. If I click on functions, you can able to see there are different types of functions are there. That is system defined function, aggregate function, scalar valued function, table valued functions. Right. Now, if I click on table value function, you can see there is no function has created it. Now, if I click on scalar value function, there is no function has created it. Now, these are the two functions we already discussed in our previous video. Okay. Now, let's see how we can create this user defined function. Okay. Before that, I'll introduce with the syntaxes how we can create this user defined function. Okay. Now start with scalar valued functions. So it's going to start with the create command only. Create. So what is that function, right? So create function, you have to mention function name. Now, so here you have to pass some parameters. Okay, that's going to take it as an input. It could be single or it could be multiple. Okay, so each and every parameter has to start with, we are going to use at the rate. Okay, I'm going to use x here. At the rate x will define as a variable or parameter. So we have to define what is the data type of it. Okay, I'm just giving integer. Now, next what we have to do, we have to return. So what it's going to returns what is the data type. So whatever the return data type you have to return, that's going to return as integer. Okay, next, so as begin, so next, so what we are going to do, so we have to write return of, so whatever the expression that you want to write, you can mention. So I'm just using variable x into any number. Okay, now you can see I have to end this one. So this is the basic syntax of scalar valued function. Okay, now let's see how we can write a function. So this is a syntax. Now I'm going to create a function. Create function, I'm just writing func underscore 1. Okay, of variables I'm just giving x or anything integer. Now it has to return, okay, returns integer only, as begin return of, I'm just giving ax into any number 4. Okay, I'm just ending it up. Now if I execute this query, you can see that it got executed successfully. Now if you go and refresh these functions, you can able to see that this is a scalar valued functions, right? So we didn't mention any table in this, in function, function generation, right? Now, so that I'm just clicking on scalar valued function and just executing, refresh it again. Okay, one thing you need to understand here. So we didn't use any database separately, right? So that's why it's going to create all this function. This is function we created in, you can see we are not able to see any scalar function in this database, right? That means So we created this function in this database, that is master database. Okay. Now, so even if you go and check in system defined database, that is master, there it is a programmability will be there in that functions, in that scalar value function. Now you can see func underscore one, we created this function in this database. So in order to create in any database, you can see use, you have to use that database. Okay. Now I'm going to use this database. Now you can able to see that it was changed, right? Now I'm going to execute this again so that I'm going to create this function in this database. Okay. Now you can see I'm going to database, that is data analyst. In this data analysis, sorry, in this data analyst, I'm going to check with this one, right? I'm going to refresh it again. I'm just clicking on it. Now you can able to see that this is the function, right? Now we created a function. Now how can we call it? So let's see that. Select. So here we are returning a single value as output, right? So you are not going to call it directly. If you call it directly, it will be returning some error. Now you can see what is that error. So invalid column name, this one. So if you are passing directly, it's going to consider as a column name. Okay. Now, so this is a database object function, right? So you have to assign with dbo.func. Now if I execute this one, it's going to return some error. You can see what is this error. The multiple part identifier dbo function could not be found, right? Here, so we initialize this function with the help of a parameter. So we have to pass a parameter. Okay, I'm just passing one. I'm just passing one parameter. Now, if I start executing this one, you can able to see that it's going to return 8. Why? We passed a parameter that is x equal to 2. How it's going to return? It's going to return this logic, that is x is 2. It's going to multiply with 4. We are getting 8 as output. So even if you want to name that as multiplication, now you can able to see that multiplication as column name. Now you can see. So what? Now, even if I try to change this condition to 8, now if I try to execute this and once again by changing the condition, it's going to return some error. What's the error? This function is already existing. Now let's see with alter command. I'm going to change the alter function with changing this condition, right? Now if I execute this query, now we change the condition. Now if I execute this one, it's going to return 16. We are getting 16, right? So this is how scalar function will work. It will be returning a single value as output. See here, we are applying a single variable, right? You can also apply multiple variables. I'm just adding one more. I'm just using integer. Next, one more, that is C. I'm just using integer only. Now, here what I'm doing, I'm just declaring the variable, right? You can also do like directly, you can also return, okay? At the rate X, at the rate Y, multiplication with at the rate C as well, okay? Now, again, changing the condition, right? Here also you can see altering the function. Now it's going to execute successfully, right? Now if I try to execute this same function again, it's going to return some error. What is the error? So we are trying to pass 3 parameters, but here, here we initialize 3 parameters, right? But we are passing only single parameter for this function. So you have to pass 3 parameters, right? I'm just passing 2, 5 and 7. Now you can see how it's going to return the multiplication of these 3, that is 2 into 5, 5, next 10, 10 into 7, 70. You can able to see that, right? So similarly, you can return any, you can pass any values. Okay. Now if I pass any numbers, you can able to see that their products. Okay, but it should be in under the limitations. So there is a limitation, right? You can able to see that arithmetic overflow. It will be, it's going to allow up to the certain limits. Okay. Now I'm just reducing some limit. Okay. Now you can see. Now you can see you can able to see this value, right? So this is how you can able to pass any values. Okay. Now the same scalar function we can also read another way. Like I'm just here with the help of declare any result. Okay. I'm just using another variable like result as another variable. So whatever the data type that's going to return, you can also initialize, that is integer. Next, set this result equal to this expression. Okay. I'm going to use this expression as this result. So now what I have to return? I have to return this result as output, right? So this is already altered. So whatever the condition that you're going to change, it will be created, right? Now you can see we are going to create the same function by using alter. We are changing the conditions in this function. Okay. Now if I execute this query, you can able to see the same result. So this is how you can also do, like declaring the result as a variable, another variable. You can also assign what is the condition for that particular variable. Okay. At the final, you are going to return that. These are the two ways that you can write scalar valued functions. Okay. Next one, table valued functions. So in case of table valued function, it's going to return a table as output. Okay. Let's see that. Create function. So it's just like a single value, but in place of scalar value, we'll be returning a table as output. Okay. Create function. I'm just using func underscore table. Okay. So even if you want to pass the variables, you can pass at the rate x integer. Okay. Next, what it has to return? it has to return table, right? So I'm just using table. Next as, so here I'm just using return of direct statement. So in case of table valued function, we have two functions. Those are inline and multi statement functions, right? So now I'm just using inline statement. One, I mean that is a single line. Select star from, I'm just taking one of the table existing, that is, let's see what are the tables are existing here. Select star from, employees are existing or not. Okay, this is the table I'm just referring. Okay, here employees. Here if I do it directly, now you can able to see that if I create this one, it will be written some error. Okay, it is taken. Even if you're passing the variable, it's going to take it. Now it is taken. Now if I execute this function, that is select star from dbo dot func underscore table. Now it's going to return error. What is that error? You can see. So parameters we passed here, right? But you are not passing here. I mean, you initialize the parameter, but we are not passing here. So we need to ensure that we have to pass a parameter. But these parameters we didn't apply in this result. Okay. Now you can able to see that all data from employees table. You can able to see that, right? So now I'm going to add this parameter in this result. Okay, where employee ID is greater than this one, that is this variable X. Okay. Now if I try to execute this one again, it's going to return error. Why? Here we are changing the condition with the same function. That is why we are getting error, because already function is existing with different condition. So we need to change this create to alter, right? Now if I try to execute this query, you can able to see that this got executed successfully. Now if I try to execute this one, it's going to return from six, right? From 6 employee IDs, because this is the condition we applied for this function, right? Similarly, you can see here if I use to 10, it's going to return from 11 onwards. You can able to see that. So this is how we need not to write again and again. So we can able to use this function to return any kind of data. We need to ensure that this condition has to follow. Okay. This is how we can able to pass parameters dynamically. Similarly, here it's a single variable. You can also apply it for multiple. Okay. I'm just using y as varchar of 20. Okay. Next, z as integer. Okay. These are the three parameters. So this is already in altered mode, right? Now if I try to change this again, got successfully. Now if I change this, I mean, if I execute this one, it's going to return error, because we initialize 3 parameters for this function. But we are trying to return, I mean, we are trying to pass only one parameter. Now we have to pass remaining 2. That is, second one is varchar, right? So I'm just passing engineering. Third one is integer. So I'm just passing 60,000. Okay. Now, even if you are trying to execute this query, you will be getting same result. Same result in the sense it will be following only this result. From 11 onwards, you will be getting. But it's not following these two, right? Therefore, you have to apply these parameters, I mean these two, y and z, in your resultant. So it's all depends on your requirements. Okay. Now, R, I'm just using salary is greater than, that is a z. Okay. Next one, R, what is that? Next one, parameter employee name as varchar, right? I'm just using employee name, or you can also mention that as a department. Okay. Department, like, I'm just using parameter. What's that? I'm just using directly equal to @y. Okay. Now we changed this condition in our result table. You can see already this is in altered mode. So if I it executed successfully. Now we are passing 3 parameters, right? Now let's see how it's going to return. Now you can able to see that we are getting all data because of these other operators that we are using, like or, right? So now if I change this to and, okay, now you can able to see that here we are getting almost 20 records. Okay, 20 or 19 records. Now if I execute this query again, so we change that all to and. Now if I execute this query, you can able to see that only 12 records we are getting, and those 12 records has to follow this condition. That means the ID has to be greater than of x value. What is that x value? 10. So all IDs has to be 10 greater than 10, or you can able to see that either if not following these two conditions, it can also has to follow this condition, that is y has to be in engineering department. Now you can able to see that those less than of 10 should be in engineering department, right? So now if I change this condition to and also, now what it has to return? It has to return those record, those has to follow all these three conditions, right? Now if I execute this query, it got executed. Now if I execute this one, you can able to see that we are not getting any value, because is there no record is following all three conditions, right? I'm just changing this to 40 now. Now you can able to see that we are getting 2 records. So this is how you will be writing, I mean you will be passing different values as per your requirements. So since your requirements will be changing randomly, right? So even if you want to change any values, you can able to see the result instantly. Okay, this is how these functions will be very useful for us to return any kind of data with different values. We can also pass dynamically. Okay, I hope you understood. So this is just an inline or single line table, right? Now we can also create a multi-statement table valued function. Okay, let's create that. Create function. You can mention function. You can able to see that. So this is a programmability. If I go and refresh this again, in that go functions, so we created one table valued function, right? If you click on this one, you can able to see that dbo.func table. So this was we created for just now. Okay, now we are going to create one more, that is multi-statement table. Okay, table value function, that is I'm going to give function underscore multi. Okay, I'm not passing any variables. Okay, I'm not passing any variables or parameters. What I have to return? I have to return a table again. So I'm just giving emp underscore. Okay, I'm just giving emp underscore result. Okay, this is one table that we are going to return. So now, so we need to ensure that this has to be result. Okay, this has to be result and this has to be table. So we need to create a table of, what is the table? So whatever the columns you want to assign, you can mention employee underscore id, employee underscore name. So whatever the column names that you are passing here, those will reflect in your resultant table. Okay, next salary. Okay, this is how you are going to return now as begin. So what you have to do here, you have to insert data into this resultant table from your existing data. Okay, I'm just using insert into, what is the table, that is we assign emp underscore result, from where select. Now if I try to use select star from employees, that is the existing table, right? So we are returning all table, I mean all columns, right? And just we are inserting only these three, I mean these three columns. Let's see how it's going to return. Okay, now you have to use return command. Now you have to end this. Now if I try to execute this query, you can see that what is this error? The definition for the column employee ID must include data types, right? So here we are create a table, and in that table we are going to insert the data. So you need to ensure that what are the data types that it has to be. Now you can see I'm just using passing the data types of each column. Okay, now if I try to execute this one, now you can see one more error, column name or number of supplied values are does not match, right? So we are trying to pass only these three. But here what we are doing, we are trying to return from all columns, right? From employees table. No, it won't return. I mean, no, it won't insert, right? Because of unmatched values that we are passing, right? So we need to ensure that, so whatever the column that we are inserting, those many you have to pass. Okay. Employee ID, employee name, and salary. So these are the three values only we are inserting, right? Now, if I able to, now you can see this what created successfully. Now, if I go and refresh this table valued function again, it's going to return one more function as dbo.func underscore table underscore multi. So this is a multi-statement function. So this is one statement, that is insert, and this is another statement, right? Now, if I execute this one, select star from dbo dot, what is that function? func underscore table underscore multi, right? Now, if I execute this query, you can see, you can able to see this data, right? So here we are getting all data from employees table. So even if you want to apply any conditions, so you have to pass some variables here. Okay, I'm just passing here x integer, next y integer. Okay, now here whatever the condition you want to pass, where I'm just using x. Okay, where salary is greater than x and employee ID is less than y. Okay, so these are the parameters I'm just passing now. So if I execute this one, it's going to return error. Why? We are changing this function, right? So here this is a create command is there. Okay, here we have create command and we are changing this condition. Now if I try to execute this one, it's going to return error. Why? Because this function is already existing. So we need to ensure that we have to keep altered. If I execute this query, now you can able to see that it got executed. Now if I call this function, it's going to return error. What is the error? So here, while we are initializing this, I mean, while we creating the function, we passed two parameters. But here, while we are calling the function, we are not passed any parameters, right? So we need to pass the parameter values. I'm just passing two. Okay, first x is a salary. We assign x as a salary, right? So we are going to mention that as a 40,000. Next, y is the employee. So I'm just mentioning 10. Okay. Now, if I execute this query, it's going to return those employees whose ID has to be less than 10 and salary has to be greater than 40,000. Okay. Now you can see those IDs has to be 10, I mean less than 10, you can see up to 9, and those salaries has to be greater than 40,000. Now, so you can pass anything here. Now if I able to see 60,000 and if I able to see less than 5, If I execute this query, you can see these are the people who comes under this three. So this is how you can use these functions for to see any type of response from your data, I mean your tables. Okay, so you can pass any variables, any number of variables, any values for those variables. Okay, so these are the functions are very useful in real world projects. I hope you understood. Thank you.